Are you telling me to wait? All right. All right. So anyway, whose slide is it anyways is today, and I'm making slides for that. And so this slide deck has content, but it doesn't have anything entertaining or fun in it. It's like boring words on white. So I'm going to rip through this slide deck quick, because what you really care about is the demo to show you how it really works under the hood and what's happening on the hypervisor. So just to make sure you're all in the right spot, this talk is under the hood of SAINTCON Labs. Before we get started, how many people are actually playing with the labs, have been in there this year? Has it been overall a good experience and worked how you expected? Yes. The machines are provisioning and blah, blah, blah? All right. That's good to hear. So a little background, the SAINTCON Labs, I love the Hackers Challenge that Josh does. I think it's fantastic. But I always complain that it's just a little bit too theoretical. There's nothing really that works. I mean, there's nothing that I use at work that comes out of the Hackers Challenge, because I don't do crypto in my daily job. I don't do reverse engineering in my day-to-day job. I don't do a lot of those things. And so in talking about it, rather than complain, why don't you fix it, came up. And so came up with the idea of simulating a pen test. I guess before I get this, I should start and just say, background, this is who I am. I don't know how many of you guys have been in my presentations before, but I recognize several faces, so I'll go quick. I'm Matt Lorimer. I work at USU up in Logan. I go by Zodiac on comms and other things. I'd way rather be out riding my bike right now, but sadly I can't be, so I'm in here. And I do have a soft spot for ice cream of pretty much any kind, and donuts and hot chocolate are also nice, so I ride my bike more. I do red teaming for a day job. I do systems administration and security, incident response, and kind of a SOC type of role. But I do help with the red team for various events, within the higher education system in Utah. I help with the red team that participates in audits there. I've been on SAINTCON committee for more years than I remember and probably should admit to. I helped Pope came up with the idea, and he and I got together and pushed and started a DC 435 group. If you're ever in Logan, you should totally come to it. If you're in the rest of the state that has 435 as your zip code or as your area code, you're welcome to sorry, Sean. You're welcome to start your own little offshoot and do your own groups. We'll share the DC 435 name with you, maybe. Again, I work at USU. That's me. So anyway, the labs are, like I say, there wasn't a lot for my day job in the Hackers Challenge. And it's fun to play, and it's cool, and you learn, but I didn't learn anything that I could take back to work and say, this is what I did, and this is how it applies to work. So I kind of felt guilty going down the rabbit hole of Hackers Challenge and not coming back with anything actionable at work for a conference they were paying for. So the idea of the SAINTCON Labs came up, and basically the labs are a simulated pen test. We go in, and you get put into an environment, and you can compromise remote systems. We give you a Kali Linux box, and that Kali Linux box has a management interface and a attacking interface, and if it's on the attacking interface, you can attack it and try to compromise it. If it's on the management interface, probably don't touch it. So if you have not yet played with it, but you want to, you still have about a day. If you go to hackerschallenge.org, there are 2 game boards this year, the Uber board and the SAINTCON Labs board. The Labs board, one of the challenges is get your credentials, I think. It's called something like that. If you go there, it'll give you credentials to log into these labs. Once you get into the labs, you'll get your Kali box. This is just really quick. Again, rather than spend all my time getting pictures, I'm going to do a demo in just a minute. So roll with me as these don't make sense. The demo is way more fun. I'm just trying to plow through the slides quick to get it done. But sum up is there's a lab command once you get into the box, and that lab command will let you provision various lab environments. But really, this is the part where I think about, like, why should I participate? Really, this is in my mind, again, it's actionable, but it's because you can grow and learn. If you're interested at all in any kind of pen testing or in growing into that type of a role, or even if you are a blue teamer and you're going to be blue teamer for life, if you're a sysadmin or whatever, these labs are, the concepts and ideas are things that I have actually seen, or I've talked to people who have legitimately exploited pretty much everything in the labs. This year there is one exploit in the labs that I have not seen in the wild, and that's just because it was a new one and I was excited to use it. But it's not a very real world. But pretty much everything in there is something that if you walked into a random environment, you would find and you would see and you could exploit. Another thing, I think that one of the biggest points of the con in general is to meet people. If you don't know the guy next to you, you're probably doing it wrong. You should turn next to him and say, "Hi, my name's Matt. What's your name? I don't know you." The whole point of labs is they're a little bit hard. I hope that you find people that are also working on them and work on them together and learn with each other. Hackers Challenge points. There are prizes for this board. This is a little bit easier of a board than the Uber board. You don't get a black badge, but you do still get prizes, and the prizes are pretty cool prizes. So I totally would recommend people participate. This is real quick, what powers the labs? What do we have? The labs are actually not on site. I mentioned I work at USU, and they are located back at USU, living in our data center. Basically, we took some old Dell PowerEdge servers. If anybody needs a ProCurve SFP, I don't know if it's 1 gig or 10 gig, but I found one on the podium. I'll give it to you. Varying vintages of PowerEdge servers, totaling 76 cores, CPU cores, 378 gigs of RAM, and about 11 terabytes of hard drive space. We're actually not using near that much hard drive space. We're also not using near that. We're using less RAM than I thought we would, and we are not using a whole lot of CPU until we get to the Hashcat labs. Some random old Brocade switch we pulled out of the pile, and just the regular old USU internet feed. On the software side, I went with what I knew. I come from a virtualization and storage background. My day job has been VMware virtualization for years. I've been doing it for, like 13 years, 14 years, since like ESX 2 point something. So I'm pretty familiar with that. That's the hypervisor handling everything. We're using Power CLI for the automation. We'll get to the automation. There's a slide about that in a second. For presenting the desktops, we're using Tiger VNC with Apache Guacamole. And then we're doing that because last year we tried to do just regular RDP installed on Kali, and it turns out RDP on Kali is super janky, and it works with Windows but doesn't work with Mac, or it works with Linux but doesn't work with Windows. And you can pretty much, if you got Windows, Mac, and Linux, you can choose two and get those two to work with the RDP client in Kali, but you could never find a way to I could never find a way to get all three to work. So we decided to skip the RDP directly and just go to Guacamole and have it be the same interface for everybody. And Guacamole kind of sucks because it's Java, but it works, so I don't care. The provisioning management is all custom software that a lot of it was written by me, some of it was written by Eldon Coyle. He's not here. He helped a ton with these labs. Mostly as we got close to the conference and I got sucked into other things, he picked up a lot of my slack and finished a lot of the projects that were needing to get done. Obviously, Kali is there. That's the attack platform that's being used, and then there are various Windows and Linux target systems that you're compromising and attacking. We currently have 4 nodes that are working for ESXi hosts that are powering all the labs, and we are balancing the load across there. Right now we have 200 labs provisioned, and the way that the provisioning scripts work is lab 1 goes on node 1, lab 2 goes on node 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like we just bounce between those 4 nodes and increment up for all the labs. There's actually no shared storage because I didn't have a spare old SAN sitting around not doing anything. And so we went the cheap route, and we also don't have vSAN licenses. So everything's done with linked clones because it's 1,000 times faster to clone the VM, but also because that way it doesn't use up so much storage. And so because of that, we had to have a master on all 4 of the ESXi hosts. So there's a Kali master, and every VM that's in the labs that you're attacking also has a master or a full clone on each of the hosts. There's a couple of different processes we do, and I'm going to show you a demo. We're just going to do this in a second, but to give you an idea what's going on. We can reset the Kali box or reset an individual lab, which blows away the entire lab environment and just gives you a clean, fresh Kali box with no other labs provisioned. There is a labs provisioning script which will destroy whatever labs you currently have provisioned and then provision whatever lab you requested. Right now, the labs that exist, Sheeprock from Cache County School District created Lab 1. That is, he's back in the back raising his hand. That one's pretty cool because it shows you how to leverage a little, if you ever run into out-of-date systems and things that need to be updated and patched. There are some configuration errors in there as well that you have to exploit and leverage to get full access to the box. And so that one's pretty cool. Eldon built up a lot of the Linux 2 lab, which is fully patched, fully up-to-date Windows boxes, but pretty much just all configuration issues, leveraging lazy sysadmin work, leveraging a lot of times for us, what it happens being is, because I work at a university, departments will hire a student who does great for a student, but considering the types of attackers and the skill of attackers, they're just not up to what they need to be. And so when you have subpar sysadmin work, you get these systems exploited. So that's what Linux 2 is. Recon is one that Scotty built, and it's basically ways that you can get data out of services that are exposed to in general. There's DNS and Active Directory and various things that we all expose in all of our environments. Sorry, not Active, DNS and directory services. And it's just systems that are exposed in normal day-to-day business life. And how do you get data out of these systems is what that recon is. The 81 lab, AH or Alan from USU built that one. It's a Windows box and a Linux box. It again is fully up to date. Windows 10 fully patched, Server 2019 fully patched, and mostly exploiting configuration errors within a poorly set up environment. Not that these people aren't bad at setting up environments, they purposely did it wrong. I'm not saying that they're bad. Anyway. Next year I've already got some goals and I'm starting to map stuff out. I want labs working before day 2 of the con. I'm sorry if you were trying to play on Tuesday. It took us a little bit to get things rolling. I think they were up Tuesday afternoon, but it was not as soon as we wanted them to be. I want to get more lab environments. It was cool this year to have 4. I'd love to have 10 or 12. If there's anyone in here that would like to build one, you know somebody wants to build one, whatever, please, 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 please talk to me. If you don't want to build one, but you have ideas on what the exploit path should be, please, please tell me that too. If you have any sort of feedback on how to improve these, we want to hear these from you. If you build into the lab environment or if you give an exploit path or something like that, that does not exclude you from the game. You can still totally play. You can get points for the challenges that you create. If you create a lot of content, then you probably can't play. Like if you make 6 out of the 12 labs, then no, I don't want you to use half of it as work you did. But really, if you're just going to make 1 or 2, it's totally fine. We'd love to have you contribute and play. I want more capacity. We're actually not using as much as I thought we were this year, or as much as I thought we would this year. But I would like to have more capacity so that we can get more people playing, more people talking about it, and using more of the capacity that's there. That's the more active users. Probably need, not probably, I know I need to do more to monitor the environment and get alerts and notifications of how we're doing as far as, right now we have 200 labs provisioned, and so if you go grab credentials from the Hackers Challenge, you're gonna get dumped into one of those 200 labs, and it would be nice to be alerted when the pool's running shallow and almost empty and stuff. One of my personal goals is to shift to a new hypervisor, and new hypervisor ties in with the next two. First off, I'm not a coder at all. We're going to do the demo in a second, and you'll see that my code is pretty ugly. It's really a hack, but it's a hack that works, so I'm not too stressed. But it would be nice to get better code that's a little bit more stable and can handle some other failure paths. And then with the new hypervisor, part of that, I'd like to get something probably KVM based so that we could make this just an open source platform that anybody could check out the code, run KVM, and have their own lab environment that does what they can provision whatever labs they want. All right. That's enough terrible slides. This is the environment that we've got going on right now. Does anybody have any questions before we jump into like what's really going on and how it works? All right. So you'll see in here, this is the environment we've got. There are 4 hosts, and the way we've laid it out is there's a folder for every single one of the labs. And then down here, we've got the masters. And like I said, you'll notice that there is a master, and by the way, if you're doing the labs, this is giving you a little bit more information than you needed because you now know what machines are in each of the labs. This is your clue. I'm saving you an in-map scan. You'll see that there's, select this 81 lab on the -64 ESX host. There's a master image for both of those, like we were saying before. But really the cool part is when we get in here, this is inside of the, this is the guacamole box, this is my local box that I have a lot of the provisioning scripts, and I'm VPN'd into that environment. So we can show what's going on, but I'm going to make this actually a little bit smaller so that you can watch VMware while I'm running scripts and doing things. You can see what's happening. These scripts have gone through various things that started with like 20 scripts, and now we use 3 or 4. Okay, this is the guacamole box, which is actually the orchestration box we're using. And we've got some scripts to kind of simplify the way that things work. We've been blowing away the script or the environment occasionally just to start fresh. Zevlag also, I didn't mention him in my slides, but he did a lot to contribute. He updated the game board for us. So we give him a CSV of credentials. He ingests that, and he can assign those out to people. But I can come in here and I can say, with this provisioning script, I can say I want to provision lab 1 through 10. And then if you'll watch over here on the tasks inside of vCenter, you can see that this will just go through, and first thing it does is it looks at what's there, sees that there is currently a Kali box there, sees that there's other things, blows away the existing environment, powers off the VM, which it's funny that it takes longer to power the VM off than it takes to create a new one and delete the old one, both combined. But it goes through, it'll power off the VMs. Let me come back at this. You'll see right here, you'll watch this Kali 4 will go away and then come back shortly thereafter. Oh, I guess we're on 2, so I can go to 3. 1 through 10, by the way, are not in use. I verified that. I'm not killing someone's lab. While those are going for a second, I'm going to log into this next. All right, here you should see Lab 03. It powered off, it got deleted, provisioned a brand new one, and then I power the new one on, move on to Lab 4, and we're done. Keep going. Don't do that. So this is the Lab 1 environment I'm going into right now. This is actually the Kali box. Have you guys all seen the guacamole interface for logging in? You can all now log into Lab 1 if you're quick and pay attention and grab that. So the way this works is it provisions the VM, and then after it's provisioned the VM, it runs a post-install script. One of the steps of the post-install script is to randomly generate the password. After it's randomly generated the password, it writes it to a file to be sent out to the game board and also to be consumed by Guacamole, so that Guacamole has the same password as the Kali box. And so I'm just grabbing the Lab 01 password out of this master password file. And the way it works is it takes the last password in the list. Because obviously as we reprovision these over and over again, you saw Lab 01 existed a couple times. We've got a VNC and an SSH option to connect to these. This should look familiar for anyone who's been participating in the labs. I was going to come over here and have you watch. I'm going to fire off the command to reprovision Linux Lab 2. What this does, if you look, lab is just in your user local bin lab. It's actually a symlink, I think. Yeah. It's a symlink to this lab.py. Which is pretty straightforward and simple here. All it does is it says, here are the labs, here are the descriptions, this is what we've got. Verifies that you chose a valid option. And then it'll come in here and it SSHs to if various options. If you do -I, it'll show you what you're currently connected to and stuff. But the actual provisioning is it SSHs to the Guacamole, the orchestration box, and gives that a lab name. By the way, the Guacamole box is out of scope. Please don't break it. I told you it's janky and a little bit fragile, and I'd rather not have to figure out how you broke it, because I'm sure you could. And then I can show you a little bit about what that does on the Guacamole box in just a minute. So that's literally all it does, and then the Guacamole box fires off a script for you. So if I fire off this Linux 2 lab, over here it just says requesting lab for there. But if you look over here, it's cloning this Linux client 2, 65, Linux client 65. Now that we've got that, we edit some settings to put it in the right networks of the Lab 2 environment. Once that's done, we move on to the server, and you're in there. And everybody has their very own Linux 2 server box. Everyone has their very own Linux 1 box. You cannot break anyone else. Well, you shouldn't break anyone else's box or set lab environment, and it will be difficult for you, but you might be able to. We've tried to isolate them as much as possible. I don't know why that didn't show there. There we go. So you see it provisioned those two Linux boxes there. If I come back over to the guacamole, or the VNC session, blow that away and do Linux 1, you can watch, and it'll first destroys the environment and then provisions a brand new one exactly like it. I'm rolling through this quick. We're going to get out early. I hope you're okay with that. That's for whose slide is it anyways. Don't mind that. Sorry. Wrong tab. So back over here to the guacamole server. The way that that works is this provisioning user, there's a provisioning user on here with SSH keys that allow all of the lab environments to SSH in. No, I'm really telling you guys what you need to know in order to pwn these, so again, please don't. You'll see that we're using some of the SSH options to restrict what people can do. So from 10.30.1.250, which is lab environment 250, you can run user local bin provisioning.py lab 250. You can only run that command with that option. You can't run that command with someone else's, and so it should make things work pretty well. This provisioning.py is a pretty straightforward thing. It creates a log file. Make sure you're requesting the right lab environment, or I guess an approved lab environment. And the big kit is it runs PowerShell. If you guys, anybody in here run PowerCLI and VMware? I went in with low expectations because Microsoft and PowerShell, and turns out I actually kind of like PowerShell, because the way I describe it is I write scripts, I don't write programs. This object-oriented stuff sucks. I just do like janky scripts that start at the beginning and finish at the end, and PowerCLI fits my skill set nicely. It actually does some things very nicely. PowerShell does some cool passing of objects and whatnot. So the provisioning script, the Python is doing a lot of this data sanitization and sterilization, which honestly is if it's Python, Eldon wrote it. If it's PowerShell, I wrote it. And so he wraps my stuff to make sure that there's no easy way to hack through it and exploit it, because he is a good programmer. I'm not. Oh, that's stupid. Let's run this so I can get some pretty colors in here with it. Can I make this bigger? Oh, look at that. So the deploying lab will come in here, and you'll notice it's really pretty straightforward and easy. All that I'm doing, again, validating the lab environment, making sure we have the right things, make sure we connect to the vCenter. Make sure that there's a hidden environment that you could just figure out. So we come through here, and it just does exactly what we showed. We clean it up, and then we deploy it. But you'll notice one of the things we have to do is we have to come in here and change every single network card after we provision it to put you in your island and isolate you from the others. And like, none of these are really huge, in-depth, crazy things. I know a couple of people asked me if they can set it up and use it for their like 801 Labs wants to try and get one of these set up for them. I'm happy to help with that and do that with you. And by that I mean I'll give you the code and answer questions. But so that largely is the extent of how these work and how they isolate. As far as networking, you'll see that to isolate, we had to make different networks for every single lab environment. We just separate them out on their own VLAN. Because of the way we have to do it without shared storage, everything lives on one ESX host. So these don't have to hit the switch. These don't have to do anything. They just live within VMware. This Lab 1A only talks to Lab 1A or on that host. It exists on all three hosts, but it's not tagged up through the uplink ports, and the switch doesn't have any of these VLANs configured. Kind of plowed through that because I'm tired of looking at this, because I've been up till 3 in the morning almost every day this week trying to make it work more. So what parts do you have questions on, or what do you guys think about this? What are your comments, questions, thoughts? What else do you want to know about the labs and what they're doing?
Have you considered like maybe next iteration going to like say AWS or cloud provisioning and equipment that way instead of Falcon?
I have thought about that, but I'm at work. We're replacing 32 ESXi hosts in 2 months, and so I have free or expensive. So I'm going to go with the free option. It totally would work, and like I said, where we're looking to move hypervisors next year anyways, it would be a great time to do it. It just is a matter of, because of the way things work at USU, bandwidth is essentially unlimited. We have 40 gigs of throughput up and down, and like our internet connection is 40 gigs, and power is generated through the steam plant. They run a turbine and generate power, so power is free. It doesn't cost USU anything, and it doesn't cost the Utah Saint organization anything. It's hard to argue with free, but yeah, it would be cool to go there too.
What about a containerized solution?
I didn't say it in my first slide, but I should have started with, I'm not that smart. I have played with Docker a tiny bit, and I can do a little bit, and I would love to get there where some of this is based on that, but it's a learning curve, and if someone else wants to help me learn or help build some of this, I'd love to get there. I'm just not. I went with what I do. There's no reason we couldn't. Any other thoughts or comments? Is anybody willing to help next year create environments? Please, please, please don't leave this room until you've talked to me, because I am dead serious. I would love to have, if I could do 20 or 30 different labs that you can get, then I would put 20 or 30 labs that you could choose from on there. They will still exist. Some of the capacity has to go over to other projects, but they'll still exist. And I'll use these like for DC 435. We've got an event in a month or so that I'm going to go through these on. But if you would like access to these and you want to play with them after the con and you reach out to me, I can make sure that we get you credentials and just, instead of having 200 labs provisioned, we'll probably only have 80 or 90 labs provisioned, but I'm totally happy to let you play with one of those. So anyway, I plowed through it quick and I'm like 25 minutes short, but I just mostly had a lot of people ask me what was driving this, what was powering it. That's the point of this talk, is to give you an idea of what's powering and how they function. So anyway, that's all I've got, unless you guys have more questions. Thanks for coming. I hope you guys really are learning. Is everybody learning and having fun with the labs? Those of you that are doing it, is it worthwhile and educational? Okay, I'm glad, and hearing that makes me want to do more, and so please give us feedback and let's make it better, so next year you can learn even more than this year. So, Yeah, last year, Misha's back there, I think. Did he leave? Okay, Misha was back there. He helped me with the labs last year. And it was one of those things where I got the idea and thought, do we have enough time? And we literally threw it together at the end. And it was a little bit bumpy. Yeah. Yeah. It was really rough. And hopefully that we can continue to make progress. And this year's way better than last year, and I want next year to step it up even more. So let's keep doing this, because like I said, I love the idea, and I'm passionate about the concept of giving you real world experience, things that you might actually do, whether that's red team or blue team. But yeah, I've pushed about as far as I can push with my skill set, so it's time for me to grow a little bit, but also to reach out and try and get some more help. So anyway. All right, that's all I've got. If there's no more questions, if you want to come find me, I'll be around. Like I said, I highly recommend Whose Slide Is It Anyways? Those slides got the pretty pictures and not this slide deck. So sorry, this was pretty boring, white and black, but I hope you got something out of it. So.